What's up, YouTube? Tonight's video is all about the games I picked up during the month of September 2015. So I just posted a subscriber video thanking my 148 subscribers I had at that point, and I gave away a copy of a game. And one of the questions I asked in that video was, what game is your favorite that uses an unusual peripheral? The one answer I did not get, surprisingly, is nobody said their favorite game to use with an unusual peripheral is Laser Invasion on the NES. That's a missed opportunity, because now I can honestly say I have played Laser Invasion on the NES with an unusual peripheral. And that is my brand new Konami Laser Scope for the NES. Yes, this is one of the most ridiculous accessories that came out for the NES, and I'm very happy to add it to my NES collection because I've been collecting an NES now for 20 years and I've never had one of these. So, that said, I'm taking this ridiculous piece of crap off my head, and I will show it to you a little closer. It's not in mint condition by any means, but I got this actually at a really good price at a local store and was very surprised to find it. So, yay for another piece of worthless crap in my NES collection. Alright, so moving on, I have one other accessory to show this month, and then we'll get into some games I picked up. The other accessory I got is another Sega Sports controller. I still don't have the Sega Sports Dreamcast, the black Dreamcast system, but I found a couple of the controllers that were only sold with that system just loose in a couple of game stores. So now I have two of these, and hopefully I'll get one of those black Dreamcasts. I think it'd be kind of neat to add. I wish it didn't have the stupid Sega Sports logo on it, but it's a very nice looking controller. I think it's pretty hot in the black. So anyway, that was my other accessory pickup this month. We're going to start with Sony systems tonight, so I will start off with some PS1 games. I got quite a few PS1 games this month, and I kind of feel like PS1 collecting is starting to really get hot. Some of those games you do not see in the wild anymore, and there's just such a huge, deep library for that system. It's really a lot of stuff that I kind of thought I was about done collecting for that system, and then I keep finding more things that I really wanted to get all along. So anyway, that said, let's go into some PS1 games I picked up. First one of these is a copy of Saga Frontier 2. Always had the first Saga Frontier for a while now, and just never got the sequel, so nice to have that. Next one of these is one that I didn't really realize is getting really hard to find, and decided to get one of these this month, and that is Medieval 2. I also don't have the original Medieval, but I would like to add that to the collection at some point also. So, pretty neat. Some of these first-party Sony games, they seem like they really just didn't get big print runs, which is kind of unusual, but this is one that's a little difficult to find, at least in the US. Next one of these is Gundam Battle Assault Part 2, and fighting game with the Gundam characters. Looks pretty decent. This was a late-run game, so I don't think they made a whole lot of these, and nice to have that one also. I picked up my first Point Blank game, I believe, last month. It was the first one in the series, and now I also have the third and final entry in the series for the PS1 as well. So, of course, now I want Part 2 just to have the whole run. But another great light gun game. I've always liked this series, and really don't know why it took me this long to buy one of these, so very nice to have that. Next is a kind of forgotten Capcom fighting game, and that is Star Gladiator. This was the predecessor to another fighting game on the Dreamcast, which the name of it is completely slipping my mind right now. But anyway, it was a early 3D fighting game by Capcom, and probably not one of their finest efforts, but at least it was trailblazing for them, because up to that point, most of their games had pretty much just been 2D fighters. Next is Bravo Air Race. Always been curious about this. At first, I always thought this was a flight sim, that's why I passed it up, but now I heard it's more of a plane racing game, so should have probably known that from the title, but anyways, this one kind of interested me, and I found out it was Japanese developed, so it seems like one I wanted to try out, plus it was like $2. I also got a couple Mega Man games that I kept passing over on the PlayStation because I have them as part of a compilation already, but I thought it'd be nice just to get the standalone copies so I could complete my Mega Man X series. So first one of those is Mega Man X4, which unfortunately I still need for the Saturn, and Mega Man X5. So nice to have both of those out of the way. The next one is a very rare PlayStation game in the US. Probably sold really well in Europe, I would guess, but this one did not get a big print run at all. I picked it up because I realized, oh my god, I hadn't seen that game in the store in years. and that is Colin McRae Rally 2.0. So I already had the first Colin McRae Rally game, which is more common, but this sequel is very, very uncommon. I find that a lot of Codemaster stuff it's probably very big in Europe, but it just doesn't get a lot of big print runs in the U.S. So nice to have a very rare racing game knocked off the list for PlayStation. I also picked up one that I thought I had, and I realized I didn't. I probably owned it in the past and just got rid of it at some point. But that is the original Dead or Alive with the very interesting body physics in it. I've played a lot more of the other Dead or Alive games, but this is one that I guess I just never really got hooked on. It's also a game that every time it seemed like I found it in stores, it was really beat to hell, and this copy is in good shape, so I thought it'd be a nice one to add. The last thing I got for the original PlayStation is one that, again, just talking rare first-party Sony games, this one I have not seen in years in a store, so that was one that was instantly one I wanted to get, and that is Jersey Devil, which is just one of a big run of platformers that was coming out about the same time on the PlayStation, and I think it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Very overshadowed by Crash Bandicoot, of course. So next we'll move into some PS2 games, keeping with the Sony theme. And the first one of these is the last entry in the Dot Hack series that I still needed. This is a set I've been trying to complete for several months now, and I could never find this game at a good price. I got very lucky this month, and one popped up at a very nice price. So that is Dot Hack GU Volume 2. And if you've been watching Crack Lotus's videos, he did a video about favorite spine art. And one of the things I think is neat about this Dot Hack series is if you have all of them, they form a picture on the spines across all the multiple copies of the game. So nice to have that annoying spine art complete on my bookshelf because it felt like a gap without this one little piece of it. So very cool to have that as part of my Dot Hack collection. Next one is another fighting game that I thought I had already, and it turned out I didn't, so I picked up one of those this month, and that is Bloody Roar 3, which I believe now completes my Bloody Roar series. I think this is a pretty underrated fighting game series. This one's probably not one of the best ones, but definitely worth a look. You can pick this game up very cheap. Next one's one that I just don't see a whole lot, but I don't really think it goes for a lot of money, and that is one of the last King of Fighters games on the PS2. That is King of Fighters 2006. And I don't think this was an arcade game. I think this one was pretty much just straight to the PS2 or maybe some other systems. Maybe it was a home Neo Geo release, I'm not sure. But it seems like a lot of the SNK Playmore games are pretty low print run too. So sometimes nice to find these if you get them cheap. Usually they don't go for a whole lot in the stores. The last thing I got for PS2 is another SNK Playmore game. This one is a great one. I've actually owned this on the Wii since it came out, and I've always hated the Wii control mechanics for this game, so I decided that I would take the PS2 version because it has more of a standard control layout. So that is SNK Arcade Classics Volume 1. They never released a Part 2, but there is a Volume 0 that came after this for the Japanese PSP, and I have that also, so it has a lot of other good SNK arcade games from the pre-Neo Geo era. This one features all games that came out on the Neo Geo, and great compilation, and definitely recommended. This game, again, I don't think it's going for a whole lot of money, but certainly one that I don't think is too common either, so nice one to have. Next I got some games for the PSP, and the first one of these actually turned out to be a sealed game. I didn't even realize that when I was buying it, but that is Adventures to Go, which is a Natsume game. Don't know a whole lot about this one. Looks like just a strategy RPG, and I'll probably just end up leaving it sealed because I think sealed PSP games are going to dry up eventually, so might as well keep a sealed copy of that. Maybe I'll get an open one later. The next one is one of the worst shooting games I've ever played. It's a shame this even got a physical release. I can think of so many better Japanese PSP shooters that didn't get a domestic release, but that is Platypus. I paid $2 for this, and that was too much, so I love getting pretty much any shooter I can get my hands on, and this is garbage. It was not worth $2. So please stay away from Platypus on the PSP. It's not a good game. The last thing I got for PSP is an Xseed title, and I always like getting those because they have pretty cool artwork. And that is another entry in the Wild Arms series. This is Wild Arms XF. I am so far behind on playing Wild Arms games, I don't know when I'll get to this one, but seems to be another one to add just to have the series kind of complete. So that is it for Sony systems this month. Next we're going to move into some Sega systems, And typically when I start talking about Sega systems, I start with the Genesis. This month I get to go back in time a little bit further because I actually found some Master System games, which is not something I see too often. All 4 of these were complete, and I was pretty happy to get them. A couple of these were upgrades, and then the other ones were just ones I'd always been curious about, so we'll move on into those. The first one of these is one of those upgrade copies. I got it complete. I used to have it just card only, and that is the Ninja. This is a, I don't know, average Ninja action game. I could certainly think of better ones for other systems, but it's a nice one to have. Next one's one I'm very curious about. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, and that is Saturn, and I've heard some decent things about this one, so hopefully that one will be a good one to try out. Next is the Master System port of Double Dragon, which I've also never owned. I've also heard the FM sound chip on this sounds really good, so if I ever get that mod for my Master System, I'd like to hear how this game sounds on my TV, because apparently it has a very nice soundtrack in that FM sound mode. So yeah, nice stuff there. And the last thing I got for the Master System is a part of the Fantasy Zone series. However, it's not a shooter. It's more of a Pac-Man style game. So it's Fantasy Zone the Maze. But yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting entry into the series, and certainly welcome. I like playing Pac-Man type games, so looking forward to trying that one out too. Next I'll move into some Sega Genesis games. I did not get as many Genesis games this month as I have been the last few months. The first one of these is in a really beat up box. However, this is a very, very rare game to find on the Sega Genesis, especially complete like this. So I was okay with the box being beat up, and it's a cardboard box game, so it's probably going to be hard to find a nice copy. So anyways, most people know that Wisdom Tree released games on the NES of a Bible nature, many of those to laughable effect. And this is one of the Sega Genesis variants of those games. So this is Bible Adventures on the Sega Genesis. Bible Adventures was one of the earlier games that came out on the NES by Wisdom Tree, as part of that Bible game series. But I think for the Genesis, this was the last one they released out of the 4 games that came out of it. So probably overall, this is the hardest one to get. I don't think this came out until about 95. So reasonably late run for the Genesis. Totally just stumbled on this in a local store. I had never seen a complete copy of this before, so decided I had to have it. I have Joshua by Wisdom Tree on the Genesis complete also, but there's still 2 other ones that got a Genesis release. So kind of thinking now I want to get them all just for novelty value, but they're all pretty horrible games. So anyway, we'll move on. The next one I got for Genesis is just boxed. I need a manual for this one still. And I kind of got suckered on this one. For some reason, I've seen this box several times, and I always thought it was a beat-em-up. Turns out it's just a very poor fighting game. So that is Street Smart, with this very, very classy, airbrushed-looking cover. So yeah, definitely some high production values went into that box art, and I wanted it pretty much just for the box art, if nothing else. So unfortunately, I thought, again, it was a beat-em-up, but it's just a kind of a lousy early fighting game, so wouldn't recommend that one. Next one is one of my all-time favorite games. However, it's the Genesis port of it, which is not really the best port of this game. And this was an upgrade. I upgraded to a complete copy, so now I have Outrun on the Sega Genesis, which has my all-time favorite car on the cover, the Ferrari Testarossa, so I had to have this, of course, too, as well. Alright, so those of you who have been following most of my videos over the last few months know that I'm going for a complete Sega Saturn collection. And I believe with this month's pickups, I am down to 11 games left I need for it, so I'm getting very, very close. I have a few expensive ones I still need. This month's pickups were kind of the cheaper stuff I still needed, but still happy to get these. I knocked 4 more games out of the collection. Before I get into those, though, I also had my friend Matt, who's a local friend, give me a couple demo discs for the Saturn that I didn't have. And I'm not necessarily going to collect all the demo discs, but I thought if he's going to give them to me for free, I'll certainly add them to my overall Saturn collection. So the first one of these is the playable sampler for Bug, which was probably a pretty early demo disc, maybe given out with the system at the launch or early on, I'm not sure. And I also got the Sega Saturn Choice Cuts demo. So again, a very early demo. Most of these are 95, 96 titles, I would say. And yeah, just another nice demo disc to add. The first one of these I got that is an actual game is a very late release first-party game by Sega that most people don't really talk about too much. It is a flight sim, which is not a game type that I like at all, but that is Sky Target. And I had a very hard time finding this game. finally gave in and just bought a copy of it online. The next one is the very last sports game that I needed for the Saturn. The Saturn is notorious for having about 3 or 4 or 5 really rare sports games. This is one that nobody talks about being rare, so maybe I was just unlucky, but that is VR Golf 97. Yeah, I had a hell of a time just trying to find a copy of this, so happy to get that knocked off. Next one is Darklight Conflict, another one that just could never find this in person, so I just gave in and bought it online. It's not a very expensive game. And the last one kind of was a same situation, just never could find it locally. So that is the original Gun Griffin, of which there's been several sequels over the years. Most of them didn't come out in the US, so kind of neat to get that knocked out as well. And stay tuned. Hopefully I'll have that collection knocked out here in not too much longer. So next we're going to talk about Xbox games. We're switch gears. I didn't pick up any 360 games this month. I just got a couple of original Xbox games. And I decided to start going after some of the rarer titles on the Xbox. Regardless of whether they're worth a lot of money right now, I kind of have a feel for which games I don't see very often. So I picked up IndyCar 2005. Again, this is a Codemasters game. I think that might have something to do with it, but this is one that overall you just don't see that much on the Xbox. So decided to go ahead and get a copy of that. And the other one of these was one that I've probably only seen once or twice before in stores, so I just thought, again, it's very cheap. Might as well grab a copy of that now before it's too late. And that is Curse: The Eye of Isis. Don't really know a whole lot about this one. I'm assuming it probably was a PC game originally, but again, just one you don't see a whole lot on the Xbox, so decided to grab a copy of that. We'll go into some portable systems next, and I'll talk about a few games I got on the original Game Boy. I went to a flea market this month, and a lady was really nice. She decided to give me a really good deal on some Game Boy games, so most of these I got for like $1 or $2 a piece. It wasn't a big deal. First one of these is Gearworks, which I believe is a puzzle game by Sony, while they still were publishing for Nintendo games, Nintendo systems, I mean. Next one is one called Prophecy Viking Child. Yeah, I don't know about that one yet. Haven't tried it. And then we have the original Space Invaders, which is a title game. However, I was kind of disappointed when I played this because it just felt like original Space Invaders with nothing extra. I later found out through somebody else's video that if you plug this into a Super Game Boy, it opens up a whole new modern Space Invaders game with some really cool backgrounds. And essentially it was built with Super Game Boy support in mind, more so than playing it on an actual portable Game Boy. So I'm looking forward to trying out the Super Game Boy modes of this, and hopefully that'll be pretty cool. Last one I got is Donkey Kong Land 2, which is actually the first of the Donkey Kong Land games I bought on the Game Boy. I never had any of those for some reason, so nice to try one of those. Next we'll go into some Game Boy Color games. So this first one is Mega Man Extreme. I've had Mega Man Extreme 2 for a while, but this is the first one in that series. Then I go into a very rare Game Boy Color game. This is one that I've been looking for quite a while. Very curious to try this. I've read a lot of things about it, both good and bad, but definitely a curiosity of the Game Boy Color library, and that is Resident Evil Gaiden. Yes, so this is a very tough and expensive game to find on the Game Boy Color. One of the probably harder ones to find overall. Last thing I got for Game Boy Colors is one I never chose to buy. Certainly seen it plenty of times, and that is Super Mario Deluxe. That was another one of my flea market things that I got from that one lady. So, pretty nice on that. Next we'll move into some Game Boy Advance games. I picked up Konami's Crazy Racers. I normally don't pick up loose Game Boy Advance games, but these were so cheap I decided to take a chance. And then I also got a very rare Game Boy Advance game called Polarium Advance by Atlas. I think this came out after the DS Polarium, which was a launch title. And for some reason they put it out on the Game Boy Advance later on, or at least in a much shorter print run, because I hardly ever see this game on Game Boy Advance. Pretty cool puzzle game, though, by Mitchell, which is a very neat developer. It's been around quite a long time and doesn't get talked about too much. Last thing I got on Game Boy Advance is Complete, and this is another one that I'd never seen complete before, so I decided to jump on it. And that is Sega Rally Championship. This is a scaled-down version of Sega Rally for the GBA, so very cool. I've always liked Sega Rally. I thought that'd be a neat one to try out. Next we'll go into some DS games I got. And GameStop's kind of at that point where they're blowing out all their DS stuff, it seems like. They've cut the prices on a lot of the games. So again, normally I don't buy DS games loose, but some of the stuff is so cheap I decided to take a chance. And I got a copy of Lux Pain for, as you can see, 99 cents. So I think it's one of those digital novel games, so hopefully I'll get a box for that eventually and have a nice complete copy of that. The next ones I got for DS are complete, and the first one of these is Bangai Spirits. I've always liked Bangai on the Dreamcast, so assuming this is a scaled-down version of that. The problem with that is Bangai is one of the busiest graphically looking games I've ever seen. There's just so much crap going on the screen at once, so I can only imagine how that translates to a tiny DS screen. It probably is very difficult to play, would be my guess, so we'll see. I got an Age-Tech game I don't know much about, and that is Rhythm and Notes. Apparently it's just a music teaching game, so hopefully try that out soon. I don't know. We'll see. And the last one for DS is Steel Princess. This is one I've been curious about ever since I heard it was a puzzle game and not a RPG, which I assumed because it is Atlas published and kind of their typical art style. So definitely looking forward to trying this. I've watched a couple YouTube videos on this. It looks like a very fun game and definitely up my alley. Next we'll do some Wii games. I got Zack and Wiki, Quest for Barbarossa's Treasure. Always wondered about this game. It may be junk, I don't know, but it is Capcom and it looks like it has a decent style from the box, so got this again very cheap, decided to take a chance. Another one I was curious about on the Wii is Sakura Wars So Long My Love. This is originally a Sega developed game, I believe, and part of the series that we've hardly gotten any copies of in the US, but has been around a long time in Japan, so always wanted to try one of these, and hopefully this will be pretty good. The last one I got for Wii is one I've been looking for very hard. This is one of those games that goes for like nothing at GameStop, but then when you do those citywide searches, nobody actually has it, and this is a very tough game to find complete. I actually had to pay a pretty decent price for this just because I figured if I don't get it now, it's going to disappear forever, and that is Minicopter Adventure Flight. If you can find this game cheap, pick it up. I'm telling you, you'll be rewarded for it later. This is going to be a very rare game in the Wii. I guarantee they did not print many of these at all. And kind of looks like a really neat game, too. So hopefully it'll be a win-win on both sides there. I got a couple games for the GameCube this month. Neither of these are really that special. Just finally got a copy of Wave Race, which I never owned for the GameCube, so I decided to try that out. And then I also got the original Lost Kingdoms. I think I picked up the sequel to this last month, so I figured might as well get the other one too. And then, last but not least, we're going to talk about some Super Nintendo games. I kind of slowed down on Super Nintendo. The prices of that stuff got out of hand for a while, and this month I finally got some decent deals and some Super Nintendo stuff, so I decided to get back into it a little bit more. I think I've pretty much given up my goal of collecting everything on Super Nintendo. I've got just about every game I want to play on that system, so pretty much anything else from here is just going to be junk that is just clutter anyways. So anyway, that said, let's get into some Super Nintendo games. The first one of these is a complete copy of Super Conflict by Vic Tokai. And this would be part of the Super Nintendo Interesting Art series. Definitely trying to play on the Desert Storm hype of the time, but I don't really feel that haircut is proper spec there, soldier. I don't know. Maybe if I have any military members watching this video, they can comment on that, but I don't really think that would fly. I think that's kind of like I talked about last month, just one of those studio things they shot for the box art that has no basis in reality. Another colorful box I got is Doomsday Warrior. I wanted this because it is a renovation game, and I am trying to get all the renovation games. This is the only game they published on the Super Nintendo, so I thought it'd be nice to have a complete copy of that, and easy to get the one and only game they put out on that system. This next one is just a box. I've had the game for a long time. This is the Taito Classic Sonic Blast Man, which has some very fascinating box art there. I'll let you soak that in for a second. Yeah. Alright, so anyway, very classic box art, and happy to get that one. This game and its sequel are getting a little tougher to find, so I thought it'd be nice to have the box for that. I'd love to get a box for Sonic Blast Man too, but that's getting kind of out of my price range. And the last box I got, I've already owned the card of this, is for Brawl Brothers. This is part of the 3-game beat-em-up series that Jaleco put out. They all have different titles. And this one has a pretty cool box, I think, so definitely a lot better than the box for Rival Turf I showed off last month. But yeah, nice to have another beat-em-up box for the collection also. So next, I'm going to get into some loose carts for the Super Nintendo, and like I said, there's quite a few this month, more than usual. First one of these is I got a copy of Rock and Roll Racing. This is a game that's just been... This game has never been cheap, by the way. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, this game still went for 30 bucks used back then, so... Just one I had to suck it up, finally buy a copy of, because you will never find this game cheap, it seems like. Next one is Plock, and for some reason I thought this might be related to the game Trog on NES. The art style looks somewhat similar, but it really looks like it's more of an average platformer, so no more Pac-Man type games for me like I was hoping for. This next one is one of the probably rarer games on the Super Nintendo. It's one I really had trouble finding, and that is Oscar by Titus. Very late release for the system. I think this came out in '96. And yeah, just another one of the Titus games that was European developed that doesn't really get a whole lot of fanfare, and probably for a reason. I haven't tried it yet, but not expecting great things from that one. Next, I got a copy of Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys. And I own this game in several systems, probably on better formats, so that's why I kind of hesitated to buy this. But I got it very cheap, so I took a chance. Next is Eek the Cat, which this is a pretty difficult game to find. It doesn't go for a lot of money, but you don't see this game too often. I will also say Ocean is another publisher that seems to have some pretty low print run licensed games, so nothing really that's fun to play. However, those are games that are more difficult to find. Next is a very nice label copy of Paladin's Quest by Enix. This is one of the lesser heralded RPGs for the system, and I always wondered what it was like, so figured I'd give that one a shot and see how it is. Next is Street Racer, which is a pretty decent Mario Kart clone, actually. Then we have Jim Lee's Wildcats. Probably most people don't remember that series. Jim Lee did not do any favors to the X-Men back in the comic book days, so I don't really think that's going to be very good. I have a pretty big bias against Jim Lee, so we'll just move on. Then we have Maui Mallard and Cold Shadow. This is another late release game. I think this came out in '96 as well. Zardion, which is a mech battling game. Always curious about that one. Then we have Doom Troopers. I own this on the Genesis also. And finally, for the month, we have another rare Titus game, and that is SOS Sink or Swim, not to be confused with the other SOS game by Vic Tokai on the Super Nintendo. Two totally different games, and this was another one that was pretty difficult to find. So anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for the month. Hopefully you guys liked this video. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and have a great day or night wherever you are. I will talk to you soon.